beautiful alien slave was being tortured until human Scavenger accidentally saved her life. The station's emergency lights cast eerie red shadows across the corridor. I'd been in worse places, but something about Veros 9 made my skin crawl. Maybe it was the silence. Abandoned terraforming stations usually had some ambient noise, dripping pipes, creaking metal, backup systems running. This place was dead quiet. I checked my wrist display again. The coordinates led to a storage bay 2 levels down, where my contact should be waiting with the package. Simple retrieval job. Good pay. No questions. The lift groaned as I descended, protesting after years of disuse. When the doors finally scraped open, I drew my pulse pistol. Standard procedure in places like this. The corridor stretched before me, emergency lighting barely illuminating the way. I followed the nav marker on my display until I reached a set of double doors marked Research Bay 7. Not the storage area I'd been directed to, but my scanner showed life signs inside. 3 human, 1 something else. The doors weren't locked. That should have been my first warning. I eased them open, staying low, and stopped at the site before me. A makeshift laboratory had been set up in the center of the room. 3 men in unmarked exosuits surrounded a medical table. Their equipment was crude but effective: portable neural extractors, memory siphons, and a stabilization field generator. But it was what lay on the table that made my blood run cold. A crystalline humanoid figure was strapped down, outer shell quickly changing between deep purple and alarming red. I'd seen Thresians in trading outposts before, but never this close, and never being brain-mined. Increase the extraction rate, one of the men ordered, adjusting a dial on his equipment. We need to get deeper into the memory structures. The Thresian convulsed as a neural probe pierced deeper into what passed for its skull. I'd heard about this on the black market. Brain mining. Extracting information directly from sentient neural pathways. Illegal everywhere, even in the lawless zones. We're hitting resistance, another man reported. The encryption is adaptive. Force it. The client doesn't care if the package is damaged afterward. The package. My grip tightened on my pistol. This wasn't a simple pickup. I'd been set up as part of an extraction team for a living being. A high-pitched whine suddenly cut through the air. One of their devices was overloading, red warning lights flashing across its display. "Shit, you pushed too hard," the third man shouted. An automated voice echoed through the station. "Warning. Unauthorized neural extraction detected. Biohazard protocols engaged. Station lockdown initiating in 60 seconds. The men looked at each other in panic. "Grab what data we have, and move," the leader ordered, disconnecting cables from the Thresian. "What about her?" one asked, gesturing to their victim. "Leave it. Dead weight now." They hurriedly packed essential equipment, ignoring me in their rush. I pressed against the wall, letting them pass. My job was the package, not playing hero. The storage bay was just down the corridor. I could still complete the job and get paid. Warning: locked down in 30 seconds. I stepped into the room, eyes darting between the storage bay door and the Thresian on the table. The crystalline being's color had dimmed to a weak flicker. It wouldn't survive long disconnected from the stabilization field. Not my problem. I turned toward the storage bay. Then it happened. The Thresian's head turned, those alien eyes locking with mine. No pupils, just luminous depths that somehow conveyed desperate fear. I felt something brush against my mind, feather-light but unmistakable. A voice, not heard but felt. "Please, just one word," carrying more emotion than seemed possible. "Warning. Lockdown in 15 seconds. Damn it," I muttered, holstering my pistol, and rushing to the table. The restraints were simple enough, designed for human prisoners, not alien anatomy. I severed them with my utility knife, and lifted the Thresian. The body was surprisingly light, like holding crystallized air. Warning. Lockdown in 10 seconds. I sprinted for the exit, the Thresian cradled against my chest. The emergency bulkheads were already beginning to descend. 9, 8. Down the corridor, sliding under the first bulkhead as it lowered. 7, 6. Around the corner, the lift still open from my arrival. 5. Inside, slamming the control panel for the docking level. 3. The lift groaned upward, agonizingly slow. 2. Doors opening to the docking bay, my shuttle waiting with engines on standby. 1. I crossed the threshold of my ship as the final bulkhead slammed shut behind me, sealing the station. The Thresian got heavier in my arms as I laid it down in the cargo hold. Tarnished edge. Emergency launch protocol, I commanded. Rushing to the cockpit. My ship responded instantly, disengaging docking clamps and firing thrusters. We pulled away from the station as its external defenses activated, scanning for unauthorized departures. I punched in a series of evasive maneuvers and jumped to short-range FTL as soon as we cleared the gravity well. Only when the blue shift of FTL travel covered the view screen did I allow myself to breathe. I'd left both my payment and any explanation behind. Kenzo would be furious. This job was supposed to set me up for months. A soft sound from the cargo hold drew my attention. I engaged the autopilot and went back to check on my unexpected passenger. The Thresian lay semi-conscious on the deck plating. The violent red-purple flashes had subsided, replaced by a faint, steady blue glow coming from within the crystalline body. As I knelt beside it, those strange eyes opened again, focusing on me with effort. "I am Veshila," the Thresian whispered, voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Thank you for saving me." Then her eyes closed, the blue light dimming as she slipped into unconsciousness. I ran a hand through my hair, staring at the alien I'd risked everything to rescue. "What the hell have I done?" I whispered to the empty ship. The autopilot light blinked steadily on the console as I paced the narrow confines of my shuttle. 3 hours in FTL with an unconscious alien wasn't how I'd planned to spend my evening. The Thresian Veshila hadn't moved since collapsing in the cargo hold. I'd managed to set up a makeshift medical cot, but beyond that I had no idea how to help a crystalline being. I checked the life sign scanner again. The readings made no sense to me. Were those vital signatures strong or failing? The scanner was designed for carbon-based life forms, not whatever Thresians were made of. A soft glow drew my attention back to the cot. The dim blue light emanating from Veshila's body had intensified, changing to a cautious amber that pulsed from within her crystalline body. Her eyes opened, those strange pupilless orbs immediately looking at me. "You're on my ship," I said, before she could ask. The Tarnished Edge. We escaped the station before lockdown. Veshila slowly sat up, her movements deliberate and careful. The amber glow cast eerie shadows across the bulkhead. I remember, her voice still reminded me of wind chimes, but stronger now. "You risked your safety for mine." I leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed. "Yeah, well, that was probably a mistake. I need answers. Who are you? Why were those men trying to mine your brain? What kind of trouble did I just invite aboard my ship?" Her head tilted slightly, an oddly human gesture from such an alien figure. "I am an archivist. My neural pathways contain historical records spanning 3 millennia, naturally encrypted within my consciousness." "An archivist? You're saying you're some kind of living database?" That would be a simplification, but functionally accurate. Her crystalline fingers interlaced in her lap. "Thresians evolved as information preservers. Each of us specializes in different knowledge domains. And what's your specialty that had those men willing to crack open your skull?" A ripple of dark purple briefly disrupted the amber of her body. "Historical records from the Convergence War era. Information deemed too volatile for general access. So those men were attempting neural extraction. The process would have destroyed my consciousness while yielding fragments of the knowledge I protect. Knowledge that was entrusted to me because of its potentially dangerous applications." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Great. Not just any kidnapping, but theft of classified alien historical records. And who exactly were they working for?" Before Veshila could answer, a harsh beeping cut through the cabin. The proximity alert. I pushed off the wall and rushed to the cockpit, Veshila following with surprising agility. The scanner showed a vessel rapidly approaching from our wake, matching our FTL frequency with precision that spoke of military-grade tracking systems. "Helix Syndicate," I muttered, recognizing the registry code that briefly flashed across my screen. "You know them?" Veshila asked, her amber glow intensifying. "High-level information brokers. They've got government connections, military hardware, and a reputation for getting what they want." I dropped us out of FTL, hands flying across the console to initiate evasive protocols. Veshila reached forward, hesitating just above my navigation panel. May I? I nodded, not sure what she intended. Her crystalline fingers made contact with the console interface. Immediately, the display flickered, then expanded, showing sensor readings far beyond my ship's standard range. What the hell? Telepathic interface enhancement, she explained, her exterior now changing to anxious green patterns. I'm expanding your sensor capabilities. The enhanced display revealed 2 additional ships converging on our position from different vectors, a pincer movement designed to cut off escape routes. They're tracking my neural signature, Veshila said, the green patterns pulsing faster. All 3 vessels are configured with crystalline resonance detectors. I swore under my breath. Those men at the station, they were just the extraction team. This is who they were working for. The ship rocked as I pushed the engines hard, banking toward a nearby asteroid field. It wasn't much of a plan, but the dense cluster might disrupt their tracking and give us a fighting chance. Hold on to something, I warned, cutting thrust to maneuver between 2 massive rocks. The pursuing ships were faster but less agile. The largest fell behind as we wove through the field, but the 2 smaller vessels matched our course with alarming precision. They're not backing off, I muttered, looking at the scanner. A flash of warning lights accompanied the sharp whine of impact alerts. A glancing hit to our port side sent the shuttle spinning. I fought the controls, stabilizing our flight path even as new alarms blared from the engineering panel. Primary drive stabilizer damaged, I reported through gritted teeth. We're running at 60% efficiency. Another near hit scattered fragments of asteroid across our hull. I pushed the damaged engines to their limit, diving deeper into the field where the larger rocks might provide better cover. For 20 tense minutes we evaded them until finally, the enhanced sensors showed the pursuit vessels pulling back, regrouping at the edge of the field. They're not giving up, Veshila observed, her body still that anxious green. Merely recalibrating. No, but we've bought some time. I checked the damage reports, calculating distances and fuel reserves. We need repairs before they catch up again. I set a new course toward the outer rim. Talos Station. It's a neutral trading outpost about 5 hours from here, even with our damaged drive. Will we be safe there? Safe is relative. But they don't ask questions if your credits are good. I sank back in my pilot's chair, suddenly exhausted. And right now, it's our only option. The tarnished edge moved away from the asteroid field, the damage causing a subtle vibration throughout the hull that I could feel in my bones. In the quiet that followed our escape, I realized what I'd gotten myself into. I should have left you, I said, staring at the starfield ahead. This job was supposed to set me up for months. Instead, I've got a damaged ship, one of the most powerful information brokers in the sector chasing me, and no payment. As soon as the words left my mouth, I saw Veshila's reflection in the viewport. Her green had deepened to a somber blue, but her eyes showed gratitude that made me regret my outburst. I can help repair your ship, she offered quietly. My archives contain extensive engineering schematics, including obsolete models like this one. I turned to study her. You're saying you have the technical specifications for a 30-year-old modified Sundog-class shuttle in your head. That and approximately 17 million other technical documents. A ripple of lighter blue was that amusement, passed through her body. It's what I was designed to do, Marcus. Preserve and provide information when needed. It was the first time she'd used my name. I hadn't told her what it was. How did you? Your registry is listed on the pilot's certification displayed beside your console, she explained quickly. I observed it when we entered the cockpit. I wasn't sure I believed that, but I had more immediate concerns than how she knew my name. All right, archivist, I said, setting the autopilot again. Let's see if we can keep this ship together long enough to reach Talos. Then we'll figure out our next move. She nodded, the blue of her body becoming calmer as we began our damaged journey toward Talos. After a while, Talos Station sat in the viewport. The station was technically under Union jurisdiction, but actual enforcement was minimal at best. Perfect for people like me who needed to stay off the grid. I eased the tarnished edge into our final approach, compensating for the damaged drive stabilizer. The ship shuddered beneath my hands. Talos Control, "This is freight vessel Tarnished Edge requesting docking clearance," I said into the comm. "Sustained drive damage requesting repair bay access." After a moment of static, a bored voice responded. "Tarnished Edge, transmit registration and payment. Bay 17 is available. Standard rates." I transmitted the credits and the bare minimum of required registration data, one of several false identities I maintained for situations like this. "Will they ask about me?" Veshila's crystalline form had changed to anxious green patterns again. "They'll ask about anything they think might cost extra," I replied. "But they won't care who or what you are as long as we pay our docking fees." The automated guidance system took over as we approached Bay 17. Through the viewport, I could see a diverse collection of ships docked at various bays. Everything from sleek Union vessels to cobbled-together salvage ships. "We need to hide your appearance," I said, eyeing her luminous body. "Talos has plenty of non-humans, but Thresians are rare enough to attract attention we don't need right now." I rummaged through my storage locker and pulled out a hooded cloak I'd acquired years ago during a job in the Vega system. "This should cover most of you. Keep your head down and stay close." Veshila took the garment, her fingers brushing against mine. I felt a slight tingling sensation but pulled away quickly, remembering her telepathic abilities. "Thank you," she said, draping the cloak around her shoulders. With the hood up, her crystalline features were obscured, though a faint glow still emanated from beneath the fabric. "If anyone asks, you're from Proxima 3. They've got some bioluminescent humanoids there, and most people don't know enough to spot the difference." The docking clamps engaged with a satisfying thunk, and the repair bay pressurized around us. I activated the security protocols on the ship before leading Veshila to the airlock. "Stay close," I warned as the doors hissed open. Talos Station hit us with its distinctive smell. Recycled air, engine grease, and the mingled scents of dozens of species packed into enclosed spaces. The repair bay was mercifully quiet, with only a few maintenance droids hovering near the walls. Veshila's steps faltered as we entered the main corridor. Even with the cloak, I could see her crystalline structure changing colors beneath the fabric, amber with flashes of nervous green. "Too much input," she whispered. "So many minds in such proximity." I hadn't considered that her telepathic abilities might be a liability in a crowded station. "Can you block it out?" She nodded slowly, with effort. "It's just unexpected. I haven't been around this many beings in some time." We made our way through the corridors toward the parts district. Talos Station's layout was chaotic, with sections built and rebuilt over decades without any master plan. The parts district had grown organically from what was once a storage area, now filled with stalls and shops offering everything from legitimate replacement components to questionable salvage. Veshila stayed close behind me, head bowed beneath her hood. Most passers-by paid us no attention, though I noticed a few curious glances toward my cloaked companion. In Talos, someone hiding their appearance wasn't uncommon, but it did suggest they had something worth hiding. I stopped at a parts dealer I'd used before. "Marcus." Drell's gravelly voice carried over the ambient noise of the district. "Long time, my friend. What brings you to my humble establishment?" "Drive stabilizer took damage," I said, approaching his stall. "Need parts for a Sundog Class 30-year model with Orion modifications." Drell scratched one of his four chins thoughtfully. "Outdated but not impossible. Might have some compatible components in the back storage." "Who's your friend?" His compound eyes looked at Veshila. "Just a passenger," I said dismissively. "You have what I need or not, Drell." "Always so direct," he chuckled, moving toward his storage area. "Wait here, I'll see what I can find." While Drell rummaged through his inventory, I noticed Veshila had drifted toward a display of crystalline circuit arrays. Her gloved hand hovered over them, not quite touching. "These are Threshan design," she whispered when I moved closer. "Though simplified for commercial use." "Don't draw attention," I muttered, scanning the crowded marketplace. "We just need the parts and I stopped mid-sentence. Across the busy thoroughfare, a figure had paused, attention focused in our direction. Unlike the diverse crowd around them, this being's proportions and movements were unmistakably similar to Veshila's. Another Threshan. The being wore no disguise, their crystalline body a deep turquoise with occasional ripples of silver. They stood perfectly still amidst the flowing crowd. "Veshila," I said quietly, "don't turn around suddenly, but we've got company. Another of your kind across the way." Her body tensed beneath the cloak. "Here, that's unusual. Friend of yours, unlikely. Threshins rarely leave their established territories unless..." Her voice trailed off. "Unless what?" Before she could answer, Drell returned with an armful of components. "Found most of what you need," he announced proudly. "The primary coupler is modified from a Heracles class, but it'll work with your system. Might even improve performance if you adjust the variance settings." I kept one eye on the Thresian across the thoroughfare as I negotiated price with Drell. The being hadn't moved, still looking at us with unnerving focus. After paying more than I wanted for the parts, I guided Veshila away from the stall, deliberately choosing a path that would take us around the other Thresian, not toward them. "We should return to the ship," I said quietly. "Get these repairs done and leave before..." "Wait." Veshila stopped, turning toward the Thresian observer. "They're trying to communicate. Is that wise?" I asked. But she was already changing direction, moving toward the other crystalline being with purpose. I followed, keeping one hand near my concealed pulse pistol as we approached. The Thresian remained still, those same pupilless eyes I'd become used to now studying us both. When we were close enough for conversation but not quite within arm's reach, the Thresian spoke, their voice similar to Veshila's chime-like tones but deeper. "You are far from the archives, Keeper." The words seemed directed at Veshila, though the Thresian's eyes moved between us. Veshila lowered her hood slightly, revealing enough of her face for confirmation. "As are you, trader. What brings you to this outpost?" "Commerce initially. Now concern." The Thresian's crystalline body rippled with indigo patterns. "News of your abduction has spread through 3 systems. Substantial rewards are being offered for your recovery." My hand tightened on my pulse pistol. "By who?" The Thresian's attention turned to me. "By multiple parties. The research collective publicly claims concern for a missing representative. The Helix Syndicate makes no public claims but offers generous payment for information. And there are others, less forthcoming about their identities." The research collective, Veshila's voice had hardened. "They arranged my abduction." "So I suspected," the Thresian nodded. "Their methods have become increasingly questionable in recent cycles." "Is there somewhere more private we can talk?" I interrupted, acutely aware of the busy thoroughfare around us. The Thresian seemed to consider this. "I have a private trading office in Section 12B. We can speak there without observation." I hesitated, assessing the risk, but Veshila placed a hand on my arm. "We can trust Mevlok," she said quietly. "Trader status is bound by strict ethical protocols among our kind." Reluctantly, I nodded, and we followed the Thresian, Mevlok, through the winding corridors of Talos Station to a small but well-appointed office tucked between a food dispensary and a navigation equipment shop. Once inside with the door secured, Veshila removed her hood completely. Her crystalline body glowed with emotional patterns I was beginning to recognize: relief, concern, and cautious hope. "You know of my situation?" she asked, Mevlok. "Only what has filtered through communication channels," Mevlok replied. "An archivist, taken by force from a research station." The specifics were unclear, but the breach of protocol was evident. The research collective wanted access to restricted historical records, Veshila explained. "Knowledge I'm entrusted to protect." Mevlok's colors darkened. "The war archives," Veshila nodded. "That would explain the urgency behind their search," Mevlok said, "and the resources they're committing to finding you." "How bad is it out there?" I asked, leaning against the wall near the door. "What kind of heat are we looking at?" Mevlok turned those unsettling eyes toward me. "Your human associates would describe it as shoot-first protocols. The official bulletin claims Veshila was kidnapped by pirates and must be recovered due to her fragile condition." "Fragile?" Veshila's colors flashed indignantly. "A convenient fiction to justify deadly force," Mevlok explained. "The bounty specifically rewards undamaged cognitive systems." I ran a hand through my hair. "They want her brain intact, but don't care about the rest." "Precisely. We need to leave Talos now." I pushed away from the wall, gathering the parts we'd purchased. "Thank you for the warning, but we need to get back to our ship." Before you go, Mevlok said, moving to a storage unit against the wall. Take these. They removed several crystalline components similar to those Vashila had examined in the parts district. These will integrate with your ship's systems more effectively than standard human components. They may provide an advantage. Vashila accepted the components, her exterior briefly matching Mevlok's turquoise in what I assumed was a gesture of gratitude. Safe journey, archivist, Mevlok said formally. The knowledge you protect must remain secure. Thank you, trader, Vashila replied with equal formality. May your exchanges be equitable. Back in the corridors of Talos, we moved with greater urgency toward our repair bay. Vashila had resumed her hooded disguise, but I could see the troubled patterns moving beneath the fabric. Will your friend report us? I asked quietly, as we navigated the crowded passageways. No, the trader code is absolute among my kind, but others may have already recognized me. We reached Bay 17 without further incident. Once inside with the door sealed, I began laying out the parts we'd acquired, mentally planning the repair sequence. How long will repairs take? Vashila asked, setting down the crystalline components Mevlok had given us. Normally, half a day for a proper job. Given our situation, we'll need to work faster. I can help, she offered. The schematics for your drive system are within my archives. I raised an eyebrow. You just happen to have 30-year-old ship designs memorized. I have access to the complete technological evolution of 17 major civilizations, including all registered spacecraft designs from the human expansion era. There was a hint of pride in her voice. Show me, I challenged. Vashila approached the damaged drive stabilizer, her crystalline fingers hovering above the twisted components. This design has a fundamental flaw in the coupling mechanism. The original Sundog engineers compensated with reinforced housing rather than redesigning the core element. She turned to the parts we'd gathered. With these components, we can implement a bypass configuration that was developed 20 years after this model was discontinued. It never entered production because the Sundog line was cancelled, but the schematics were registered with the Central Engineering Authority. I stared at her. You're telling me you can not just fix my ship, but improve it? Precisely. A ripple of lighter blue, that same sense of amusement I'd noticed before, passed through her body. For the next several hours we worked side by side in the cramped repair bay. Vashila guided me through modifications I would never have attempted without her confidence. Her knowledge was uncanny. She knew every bolt size, every power rating, every connection point without hesitation. Hand me the phase coupler, I said, wedged awkwardly beneath the drive housing. Vashila selected the correct component and passed it to me. As our hands met, something unexpected happened. A jolt of energy passed between us, and suddenly my mind was flooded with images, diagrams of ship systems I'd never seen, mathematical formulas beyond my understanding, and fragmented memories that weren't mine. A young crystalline shape surrounded by others like her, absorbing information from what looked like ancient data repositories. At the same time, I felt Vashila tense beside me. The connection broke as we both pulled away, startled. What the hell was that? I gasped, dropping the component. Vashila's exterior had changed to a vibrant pink I hadn't seen before. Sorry, that was unintentional. You were in my head again. The connection was mutual, she said, her colors still pulsing with that unusual pink. I saw fragments of your memories, a mining colony, a young human child watching ships depart. I stiffened. Those weren't memories I shared with anyone. You had no right. It wasn't deliberate, she insisted, pink fading to a subdued blue. Neural connections can form spontaneously with physical contact, especially during moments of focused concentration. We finished the repairs in uncomfortable silence. Following her instructions without meeting her eyes, I completed the drive modifications, testing each system as we progressed. Despite the tension between us, I had to admit her knowledge had transformed a standard repair into something more. The drive readings showed performance levels beyond the original specifications. Once everything was secured, I ran a final diagnostic while Vashila retreated to the small galley area of my ship. When I joined her there, she was staring at a dispenser cup of what passed for coffee on my ship. Her crystalline fingers traced the rim absently. The drive modifications were successful, I said, breaking the silence. We should be able to outrun standard pursuit craft now. She nodded but didn't look up. I sighed and sat across from her. What happened back there? With the mind thing. Information sharing, she replied quietly. It's how Threshens communicate on deeper levels. You've done it before, at the station when those men were trying to extract information from you. That was different. A deliberate projection of a single concept, a plea for help. She finally looked up at me. What happened during repairs was a level 3 connection. That's considered quite personal. Level 3. Her exterior turned to that pink hue again. Among my people, information sharing is intimacy. The deeper the connection, the more personal the exchange. Level 3 allows access to emotional context and personal memories, not just factual data. I processed that information, suddenly understanding her embarrassment. So we basically it's not an exact parallel to human intimacy, she said quickly. But it is considered a significant breach of boundaries without prior agreement. I see. I rubbed the back of my neck awkwardly. Well, I'm sorry for invading your privacy, I guess. As am I, she replied. Her exterior slowly returning to a calmer blue, though it wasn't entirely unpleasant. Before I could respond to that surprising admission, a harsh beeping erupted from the cockpit. I rushed to the console, Vashila close behind me. Proximity sensors, I explained. Reading the display. Something's scanning the station, specifically targeting crystalline signatures. I switched to external cameras, showing a security vessel docked 2 bays down. Uniformed personnel were moving systematically through the area, carrying handheld scanners. They found us, Vashila whispered. Not yet. They haven't. I dropped into the pilot's seat and began startup procedures. We're leaving. The repairs are good enough. I activated the comm. Talos Control, Tarnished Edge requesting immediate departure clearance. Tarnished Edge departure queue is currently emergency override. I interrupted, entering a code I'd paid handsomely for years ago. Medical situation aboard. A pause, then override accepted. Bay 17 depressurizing. You may depart when ready. I guided the Tarnished Edge out of the repair bay, keeping our acceleration measured despite the urgency. No sense in drawing attention with excessive thrust. They're scanning us, Vashila reported, watching the sensor readings, but the modified drive signature doesn't match what they're looking for. Let's hope it stays that way. We cleared the station's traffic zone without incident, and I plotted a course away from major shipping lanes. Only when Talos was a distant pinpoint of light behind us did I allow myself to relax slightly. That was closer than I'd like, I muttered. Vashila had settled into the co-pilot's seat, her exterior now a calm, steady blue that seemed to match the FTL field surrounding us. We were fortunate to meet Mevlok, she said. Without their warning, we might have remained longer. Yeah. Well, luck has a way of running out. I checked our heading and adjusted course slightly. We need a better plan than running from station to station. Vashila was quiet for a moment, contemplating the star field beyond the viewport. I could teach you, she said finally. Teach me what? To access my knowledge deliberately. Her eyes met mine. What happened during repairs was accidental, but with practice you could learn to connect intentionally. Access specific information that might help us survive. I studied her, remembering the flood of information I'd experienced from that brief contact. You'd let me into your head on purpose. After what you said about it being intimate, under controlled conditions, yes. Her blue color deepened slightly. It would be practical. Your instincts combined with my knowledge would be advantageous. And this connection, it goes both ways. You'd be in my head too, she nodded. The exchange is mutual, though we can learn to control what information is shared. I turned back to the controls, considering her offer. The tactical advantages were obvious, but something about the idea of deliberate mental connection unsettled me. I'll think about it, I said finally. Right now, let's focus on putting distance between us and whoever was searching Talos. As we accelerated into deeper space, I couldn't help wondering what else I might discover in the vast archives of Vashila's mind, and what she might find in mine. I stared at the navigation console, watching the stars streak by as we traveled deeper into uncharted space. 2 days had passed since our narrow escape from Talos Station, and the silence between Vashila and me had grown increasingly uncomfortable. Her offer to teach me intentional neural connections still hung in the air between us, neither accepted nor rejected. The ship's systems buzzed steadily, the drive modifications performing better than I'd expected. Vashila had been right about the improvements. We were making excellent time toward the Cygnus Research Collective, where she believed we might find sanctuary. I wasn't convinced. You really think your people will protect you? After what happened? Vashila looked up from the datapad she'd been studying. Her crystalline body pulsed with calm blue light, though I noticed flickers of uncertainty disrupting the pattern. The collective itself didn't authorize my abduction, she said. It must have been a rogue faction within the organization. The governing council would never condone such actions. You sound awfully certain for someone who was strapped to a table with her brain being mined. Her colors darkened. I've been part of the collective for over a century, Marcus. I know its principles. Principles change. People change. I adjusted our course slightly, avoiding a gravitational distortion. Organizations especially. Perhaps. She set down the datapad. Have you considered my offer? I knew exactly what she meant. The neural connection. The idea still made me uneasy, but our situation was growing more desperate by the hour. We needed every advantage. Fine, I said finally. Show me how it works. The controlled version, not whatever happened during repairs. Vashila's exterior brightened with what I now recognized as surprise. You're certain? No, but I'm out of better ideas. She rose from her seat. We should move to the living quarters. The process requires focus and comfort. I set the autopilot, and followed her to the small living area of my shuttle. It wasn't much. A fold-down table, 2 seats that converted to sleeping berths, and minimal storage space. Vashila sat cross-legged on one of the berths, and gestured for me to sit opposite her. The accidental connection during repairs occurred because we were both focused on the same task, she explained. Intentional connection requires similar concentration, but with purpose. I mirrored her position, feeling ridiculous. So what? We hold hands and think happy thoughts. A ripple of that light blue amusement passed through her. Not exactly. You need to focus on a specific question, or need, something you wish to learn from my archives. I thought for a moment. The tunnel networks near the Carina Nebula. They'd be a good shortcut, but navigation data is spotty at best. A practical choice. She extended her crystalline hands, palms up. Focus on that question as we connect. Hesitantly, I placed my hands on hers. Her surface was smooth and warm, vibrating with subtle energy. Close your eyes, she instructed. Visualize the question. I'll be specific about what you need to know. I closed my eyes, picturing the nebula region, the rumored tunnel networks that could cut weeks off our journey if navigated correctly. I focused on the question, how do we safely navigate the tunnels? For several seconds, nothing happened. Then I felt it, a gentle pressure at the edges of my consciousness. Let me in, Vashila whispered. I took a deep breath and mentally stepped aside, lowering whatever barriers existed between our minds. The connection bloomed suddenly, far more controlled than our accidental link, but no less intense. Information flowed into my mind, not just star charts and navigational data, but the context behind them. I saw the tunnels as they had been centuries ago, witnessed their collapse during the Convergence War, and understood how quantum fluctuations had reformed them decades later. But there was more. Beneath the information lay emotions, Vashila's fear during her abduction, her fascination with human resilience, her growing trust in me. I felt her relief when I'd rescued her, her curiosity about my ship, her concern about our pursuers. The intimacy of these revelations was overwhelming. This wasn't just data transfer, it was experiencing fragments of another being's inner life. Just as abruptly as it began, the connection ended. I gasped, eyes flying open to find Vashila watching me, her body pulsing with that strange pink hue again. That was. I struggled to find words. More intense than intended, she finished, her colors changing back toward blue. Your mind is receptive. I rubbed my temples, trying to process what had just happened. I saw the tunnels, but I also felt my emotions, she acknowledged. The connection is holistic. Information doesn't exist in isolation from experience. You didn't mention that part. Would you have agreed if I had? I didn't answer, which was answer enough. Instead, I moved to the navigation console, where the information from our connection was still fresh in my mind. With newfound confidence, I plotted a course through the tunnel network, a route that would have been impossible to chart without the detailed knowledge I'd just acquired. This will save us at least 4 days, I said, studying the projected course, and it's not on any standard charts. Harder to predict where we'll emerge. A significant advantage, Vashila agreed, joining me at the console. The connection was successful then. Yeah, I glanced at her. But next time, warn me about the emotional bleed-through. I will, she hesitated. Was it unpleasant? The question caught me off guard. No, I admitted. Just unexpected. Before we could discuss it further, the proximity alert blared. 3 vessels had appeared on long-range scanners, approaching rapidly from the direction of Talos Station. Helix Syndicate, I confirmed, recognizing their signature energy patterns. They found us faster than they should have. Someone must be tracking us, Vashila said, her exterior changing to anxious green. I engaged the main engines, pushing them to maximum output. Hold on. This is going to get rough. The tarnished edge leapt forward, straining against the laws of physics. The pursuing vessels adjusted course immediately, matching our trajectory with disturbing precision. They're gaining, Vashila reported, watching the scanner. Not for long. I banked hard, diving toward a dense asteroid field. The modified drive systems responded beautifully, allowing maneuvers that would have been impossible before our repairs. For 20 tense minutes, we wove through the field, using the larger rocks as cover. The pursuers were forced to reduce speed, giving us precious distance. When we emerged on the far side, I immediately jumped to FTL, changing course 3 times in rapid succession to confuse any tracking systems. Only when the scanners showed clear space did I allow myself to breathe normally again. That was too close, I muttered. They shouldn't have found us that quickly. Vashila's colors had settled into concerned indigo. I fear someone at the research collective may be more involved than I initially believed. The timing of their arrival, the precision of their tracking. She moved to the small galley area and began preparing a simple meal from my ship's stores. It suggests inside knowledge of our destination. I joined her, taking the offered food packet. You think someone at the collective is working with Helix? It's a possibility I can no longer ignore. Her exterior darkened further. Someone wants access to the knowledge I safeguard badly enough to arrange my abduction. What exactly are you protecting that's worth all this trouble? Vashila was quiet for a moment, her colors moving through troubled patterns. Historical records from the Convergence War era, as I mentioned before, but specifically, weapons research data that both sides developed but never deployed. Planet killers? I asked between bites of the bland protein pack. Worse. Her voice dropped lower. Consciousness weapons, technology that could manipulate or destroy sentient minds on a massive scale. I set down my food. That's possible. It was developed but never used. The ethical implications were too severe even for wartime. She looked at me directly. I was entrusted to protect this knowledge until humanity reaches sufficient ethical development to handle it responsibly. And who decides when that is? A council of archivists after careful observation and consensus. Her exterior rippled with distress. But someone has grown impatient, it seems. We finished our meal in contemplative silence. The implications were staggering. Weapons that could target consciousness itself, potentially ending civilization as we knew it. Later that night, unable to sleep, I found Vashila in the cockpit, looking at the stars. Her crystalline body glowed softly in the darkness. You should rest, she said without turning. Your body requires sleep cycles. So should you. I dropped into the pilot's seat beside her. Do Thresians sleep? We enter restorative states, though not identical to human sleep. She turned to look at me. We don't dream if that's what you're asking. Never? Our memories are too precisely catalogued for the random associations your dreams create. A hint of wistfulness colored her voice. It sounds interesting though. Not always, I said, thinking of my own recurring nightmares. Sometimes it's memories you'd rather forget, playing on repeat. Vishila studied me. You have many such memories. Hazard of my profession. I leaned back, watching the star field beyond the viewport. You pick up scars along the way. Not all scars are visible, she observed quietly. No, I agreed. Those are usually the worst ones. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the tension from earlier seemingly dissolved. When Vishila spoke again, her voice was softer. What was your homeworld like? The question surprised me. Mining colony on Vega Prime. Not much to tell. Dust, rocks, more dust. Yet you miss it sometimes. I glanced at her sharply. Been digging in my head again? No, she said quickly. Just an observation from how you speak of it. The tone carries nostalgia despite the negative description. She wasn't wrong. It was home. Simple as that. I understand. My archive chamber on Thresia served the same purpose. Sterile and isolated by your standards. But it was where I belonged. As she spoke, I realized how little I knew about her life before the abduction. What was that like? Being an archivist, purposeful, lonely at times. Her colors changed to a reflective blue. We are selected young based on neural compatibility with the archive process. I began training at what would be equivalent to your 12 years of age. That's young to decide someone's entire life. It wasn't a choice, she said simply. It was a calling. My mind was suited for it in ways others were not. Our hands rested on the console between us, and when she moved position, her fingers brushed against mine. Neither of us pulled away. The neural connection formed gently this time, without the intensity of our earlier attempt. Instead of targeted information, we shared memories of peaceful moments. Me watching ships depart from Vega Prime as a child, filled with wonder. Veshila floating in a crystalline chamber as knowledge flowed into her young mind, feeling purpose and belonging. This is how Thresians begin courtship, she whispered, her body glowing warm gold with embarrassment. Sharing cherished memories rather than practical information. I felt my heartbeat quicken, but didn't break the connection. I didn't mean to. Nor did I, she interrupted softly. But I'm not sorry it happened. The moment hung between us, fragile and significant. Despite the growing attraction I felt, uncertainty held me back. Our physical differences seemed insurmountable. Her crystalline body and my flesh and blood body were fundamentally different. Slowly, reluctantly, I withdrew my hand, breaking the connection. We should focus on staying alive first. Veshila's golden glow faded back to blue, but she nodded in understanding. As I returned to my berth to attempt sleep again, I couldn't shake the memory of that gentle connection, or the feeling that something important had changed between us. The neural connection dissolved gradually, leaving me momentarily disoriented as I returned to full awareness of my surroundings. Veshila sat across from me, her crystalline body pulsing with soft blue light that gradually settled into a steady rhythm. This was our fourth session in as many days, and each time the transition back to normal consciousness became smoother. You're getting better at this, she observed, her voice chiming softly in the quiet cabin. I rubbed my temples, processing the information I'd just received. Detailed schematics for upgrading our shield harmonics to better deflect tracking signals. The technical data is clearer now, I agreed. Less overwhelming. What I didn't mention was how the emotional undercurrents were becoming more pronounced with each connection. Beneath the shield specifications had been flashes of Veshila's concern, her determination to keep us safe, and something warmer I wasn't ready to acknowledge. We should implement these modifications before we reach Meridian, I said, standing up and stretching. 6 days of running had left me perpetually tense. Veshila followed me to the engineering panel, where I began inputting the new shield configurations. Her proximity made me acutely aware of how our relationship had changed since that night in the cockpit. We hadn't spoken directly about the moment our hands had touched, about the golden glow that had spread through her body, but something fundamental had changed between us. The frequency modulation needs to be precisely calibrated, she said, reaching past me to adjust a setting. Her crystalline fingers brushed against mine, and I felt the now recognizable tingle of potential connection. I pulled back slightly, focusing on the task. Right, thanks. A flicker of something disappointment passed through her exterior before she composed herself. These adjustments should reduce our energy signature by approximately 43%. Good, we'll need every advantage at Meridian. I finished the calibration sequence and activated the new shield parameters. Kenzo's not exactly trustworthy on his best day. You've mentioned this, Kenzo, several times, Veshila said, settling into the co-pilot's seat as I returned to the cockpit. Yet you seem reluctant to elaborate on your relationship. I checked our course, making minor adjustments. Not much to elaborate on. He's an information broker, sells to the highest bidder, but he's got connections throughout the sector and access to supplies we can't get elsewhere. You don't trust him, she observed. I don't trust anyone. The words came out harsher than intended. Veshila was quiet for a moment. Not even me. I glanced at her, seeing the genuine question in her luminous eyes. That's complicated. Because I'm Thracian. Because trust gets people killed in my line of work. I softened my tone. But for what it's worth, I trust you more than most. That seemed to satisfy her. She turned her attention to the viewport, where the distorted starfield of FTL travel streaked past. We'll reach Meridian in approximately 7 hours, she noted. Get some rest before then, I suggested. Meridian's intense even for humans. For someone with your telepathic sensitivity, it'll be overwhelming. She nodded and rose from her seat. Perhaps you should rest as well. You've slept only 12 hours in the past 3 days. Been keeping track? I asked, with a half smile. Your well-being affects our survival chances, she replied, pragmatically, though a ripple of pink briefly disrupted her blue exterior. I'll prepare for rest cycle. As she left the cockpit, I leaned back in my chair, feeling exhausted. She wasn't wrong about my sleep deficit. With a final check of our systems, I engaged the autopilot and headed for my berth. Sleep came quickly, but brought with it fragmented dreams, crystalline tunnels that pulsed with light, pursuing ships that morphed into shadowy figures, and Veshila's voice calling from somewhere I couldn't reach. I woke with a start several hours later, momentarily disoriented. The ship was quiet except for the steady noise of the engines. I checked the time, still 2 hours from Meridian. Pulling myself from the berth, I moved to the small refresher unit to wash away the lingering unease from my dreams. When I emerged, I found Veshila in the galley area, her crystalline body glowing softly in the dimmed cabin lights. You were distressed in your sleep, she said, not looking up from the datapad she was studying. Your neural patterns disrupted my rest cycle. My brow creased with concern. You can sense my dreams, not their content, she clarified. Only their emotional resonance. Your anxiety was pronounced. Sorry about that, I muttered, preparing a cup of synthetic coffee. Hazard of sharing close quarters. She set down the datapad and looked at me directly. There's something I wish to try before we reach Meridian. A deeper connection that might help us navigate the station more effectively. I paused mid-sip. Define deeper. Level 4 integration, she said. It would allow me to experience sensory input through your perception, which would help me filter the overwhelming stimuli at the station. And what would I experience from you? Greater access to my analytical processes. You would perceive threats and opportunities more quickly, process information more efficiently. It sounded useful, but I hesitated. This level 4, is it more or less intimate than what happened in the cockpit the other night? A ripple of gold passed through her body before she controlled it. Different. That was spontaneous emotional sharing. This would be more structured, focused on practical integration. But still intimate, I pressed. Yes, she admitted. Very much so. I considered her offer. The tactical advantages were obvious, especially in a place as chaotic and dangerous as Meridian. But each connection seemed to blur the boundaries between us a little more, making it harder to maintain the emotional distance I'd relied on for survival. All right, I finally agreed. But we set clear parameters. Focus on what we need for Meridian, nothing more. Veshila nodded, her exterior changing to a focused indigo. Of course. We moved to the living area and sat facing each other. This time, instead of extending her hands, Veshila reached toward my face. Physical contact near neural clusters enhances precision, she explained. I nodded as her cool crystalline fingers touched my temples. Focus on Meridian, she instructed. Visualize the station, your previous experiences there, what we need to accomplish. I closed my eyes and concentrated on memories of Meridian Waypoint, its labyrinthine corridors, the constant noise and movement, the tavern where Kenzo conducted his business. I thought about our objectives, supplies, information, and quick departure without drawing attention. The connection formed differently this time, not a sudden flood of information but a gradual merging of perception. I became aware of Veshila's consciousness alongside mine, distinct but harmonized. Her analytical processes integrated with my instincts, enhancing rather than overwhelming them. Then something unexpected happened. The connection deepened beyond our intended parameters, and suddenly I was experiencing memories that weren't mine. A young crystalline being standing before a council of elder Thresians being evaluated for archive compatibility. The isolation of training, separated from others her age. The pride of receiving her first historical archive, mixed with the knowledge that her life would forever be defined by the information she carried. Simultaneously, I felt Veshila experiencing fragments of my past, the betrayal by my former partner that had left me stranded on a hostile moon. The years spent building walls around myself, trusting no one, the loneliness I refused to acknowledge even to myself. We both pulled back at the same moment, the connection breaking more abruptly than intended. I gasped, disoriented by the intensity of the exchange. Veshila's exterior had turned a troubled violet. I apologize. The connection exceeded our parameters. I took a moment to steady my breathing. Did you do that intentionally? No, she said firmly. Our minds seemed to have affinity. Boundaries that would normally remain intact dissolved. The realization of what we'd just experienced settled between us. I had seen her isolation, her dedication to her role despite its personal cost. And she had seen the scars left by repeated betrayals. The reason for my solitary existence. You were alone, even among your own kind, I said quietly. As were you though, surrounded by your species, she replied. We sat in silence, processing this new understanding of each other. Finally I stood, checking the time. We'll reach Meridian in 30 minutes. We should prepare. Veshila nodded, rising gracefully. The connection achieved its purpose, despite the unexpected depth. I believe I can navigate Meridian's sensory environment now. Good. I moved toward the weapons locker, selecting a compact pulse pistol and concealed blade. Stay close to me at all times. Meridian looks civilized on the surface, but it's run by whoever has the most firepower that day. I understand. She donned the hooded cloak we'd used at Talos, adjusting it to better conceal her crystalline features. What should I expect from this Kenzo? I checked the charge on my pistol before holstering it. Charm followed by calculation. He'll help us if it profits him, sell us out, if that profits him more. Then why seek his assistance? Because right now we need information more than we need safety. I closed the weapons locker, and information is what Kenzo does best. The approach to Meridian Waypoint was tense but uneventful. Unlike the more regulated Talos station, Meridian operated on a simple principle: pay the docking fee, don't cause problems that cost the management credits, and no questions asked. Perfect for someone in my situation. After securing a berth in one of the lower docking rings, I gave Veshila final instructions. Let me do the talking. Keep your hood up. If anyone addresses you directly, keep responses minimal. She nodded, her exterior changing to a cautious amber beneath the cloak. I sense many minds here. Chaotic, guarded. Welcome to Meridian, I muttered, securing the ship before we disembarked. The station's lower levels assaulted the senses, a cacophony of sounds, smells, and movement as beings from dozens of species conducted business, both legal and otherwise. Merchants hawked exotic goods from cramped stalls while security drones hovered overhead, programmed to intervene only in disputes that threatened station infrastructure. Veshila stayed close behind me, her movements slightly hesitant as she processed the overwhelming input. Thanks to our connection, I could sense her discomfort but also her fascination with the diversity around us. We made our way through the crowded corridors to a section known as the Hollow, a central hub where various entertainment establishments operated. The tavern where Kenzo conducted business, aptly named the Event Horizon, sat at the far end, its entrance marked by a holographic sign depicting a swirling black hole. Inside, the lighting was dim and smoke from various substances filled the room. Species from across the sector occupied booths and tables, conversations conducted in multiple languages creating a constant background murmur. A curved bar dominated one wall tended by a four-armed Quarian who mixed drinks with practiced efficiency. I spotted Kenzo immediately. He always chose the same corner booth with clear sightlines to both the entrance and the emergency exit. His heavy-set figure was hunched over a datapad, his cybernetic eye glowing faintly blue in the dim light. "Stay alert," I murmured to Vashila as we approached. Kenzo looked up, his organic eye widening in recognition while his cybernetic one performed a quick scan of us both. "Marcus," he exclaimed, with seemingly genuine pleasure. "I'd heard rumors you'd run afoul of some unpleasant types. Good to see you breathing." "Rumors travel fast," I replied, sliding into the booth across from him. Vashila sat beside me, keeping her hood forward. "Information is currency, my friend." Kenzo grinned, revealing teeth too perfect to be natural. "Speaking of which, you've missed a payment cycle on our last arrangement." "Been busy." I nodded to the bartender, who acknowledged the gesture and began preparing my usual drink. "Got caught up in something unexpected." "So I gathered." Kenzo's cybernetic eye focused briefly on Vashila. "And who's your companion? Not like you to travel with company." "Business associate," I said curtly. "Temporary arrangement." Kenzo's smile didn't waver, but I knew him well enough to recognize the calculation happening behind it. "Of course. What brings you to my humble establishment today?" "Need supplies, untraceable comm equipment, long-range scanner upgrades, and information about research collective activities in this sector." At the mention of the research collective, Kenzo's demeanor changed subtly. His cybernetic eye flickered, processing data. "Interesting shopping list," he mused. "The hardware is simple enough. The information, that might cost you." "Name your price," I said. The bartender arrived with my drink, a synthetic whiskey that tasted almost like the real thing. Kenzo ordered something bright blue for himself. When the bartender asked if Vashila wanted anything, she simply shook her head. Once we were alone again, Kenzo leaned forward. "The research collective has been unusually active lately. Multiple vessels moving through unregistered corridors, increased security protocols at their outposts. Any idea why?" "They lost something valuable." Kenzo's cybernetic eye focused on Vashila again, longer this time. "Something they're desperate to recover." I felt Vashila tense beside me, but kept my expression neutral. "Sounds like their problem." "Indeed." Kenzo swirled his blue drink thoughtfully. "Though it could be quite profitable for anyone who happened to know where this valuable item might be found." "What kind of valuable item are we talking about?" I asked, maintaining the pretense. Kenzo's smile turned predatory. 3 different factions have bounties on crystalline cargo matching her description," he said, nodding toward Vashila. His tone was casual, too casual. "The research collective offers the highest reward, but the Helix Syndicate isn't far behind. Even the Union Security Council has a retrieval request in the system." I felt my muscles tense, ready for action. "Interesting theory." "Not a theory, Marcus." Kenzo's voice hardened. "I've known you long enough to spot when you're in over your head. That's a Thresian archivist under that hood. Specifically the one everyone from here to the core systems is looking for." Vashila's exterior had changed to alarmed red, visible even beneath the cloak. I subtly moved my hand closer to my concealed weapon. "What's your play here, Kenzo?" He spread his hands in a gesture of innocence. "Just business, my friend. You know how it works. The research collective is offering enough credits to buy a small moon for her return. And you think I'd hand her over, after going to the trouble of keeping her safe this long? We all have our price." Kenzo took a sip of his drink. "Even you." I felt a subtle pressure against my mind. Vashila establishing a light connection. Her mental voice was urgent. He's already alerted them. Security team approaching from the service corridor. 3 minutes at most. I kept my eyes on Kenzo, not reacting to Vashila's warning. You're right about one thing. We all have our price. Kenzo's smile widened. I knew you'd be reasonable. But loyalty isn't for sale. In one fluid motion I grabbed my drink and threw it in Kenzo's face, then flipped the table toward him. The tavern erupted into chaos. I grabbed Vashila's arm and pulled her toward the emergency exit as Kenzo shouted orders to security personnel emerging from the service corridor. This way. I pushed through the crowd, using the confusion to our advantage. We burst into a maintenance corridor, alarms blaring behind us. I led Vashila through a series of turns I'd memorized years ago, an escape route I'd hoped never to need. They're pursuing, Vashila reported, her telepathic abilities tracking our hunters. Almost there, I assured her, approaching a service lift that would take us directly to the docking level. As we waited those crucial seconds for the lift to arrive, Vashila suddenly gripped my arm. I learned something important, she said urgently. When Kenzo recognized me, I accessed his surface thoughts. The research collective's director, she personally authorized my abduction. Her name is Yuna. The lift arrived, and we hurried inside. As the doors closed I saw security personnel round the corner, weapons drawn. Director Yuna, I repeated, committing the name to memory as I input the docking level code. You're certain? Yes. Kenzo received the bounty notification directly from her office. This wasn't a rogue operation, it came from the top. The lift descended rapidly, giving us a moment to catch our breath. Vashila's exterior had changed from alarmed red to troubled violet. My people, she whispered. The collective leadership itself betrayed me. The lift doors opened, and we sprinted toward our docking bay, narrowly avoiding a security checkpoint by ducking through a cargo processing area. When we finally reached the tarnished edge, I quickly initiated launch protocols while Vashila secured the airlock. They've locked down the bay doors, I reported. Seeing the warning lights on my console, I can override it, Vashila said, placing her hands on the ship's interface panel. Her crystalline body glowed intensely as she connected with the station's systems. After several tense seconds the bay doors began to open. Hold on, I warned, engaging thrusters at maximum power. The ship shot forward, scraping against the partially opened doors but making it through. As we accelerated away from Meridian, I plotted an evasive course, expecting pursuit at any moment. Vashila sank into the co-pilot's seat. Her exterior dimmed with exhaustion. They'll follow, she said quietly. Let them try. I engaged the FTL drive as soon as we cleared the station's gravity well, jumping to a random vector before changing course twice more to confuse tracking. Only when we were safely in deep space did I turn to Vashila. Her crystalline body had settled into a deep blue tinged with violet sorrow and betrayal. We can't go to the collective now, I said. If the director herself ordered your abduction, I know. Her voice was barely audible. Everything I believed about my purpose, my people, it was built on deception. Not everything, I countered. The knowledge you protect is still important. That hasn't changed. But where can we go? Her colors flashed with distress. If not to my people, then where? The entire sector is looking for us. We need to change course, I agreed. The Cygnus Research Collective is clearly not an option anymore. Then where? She demanded. Her exterior pulsing with agitation. Your people would exploit me just as readily as mine would. There is nowhere safe for what I am. Her frustration was justified. Every port, every station, every inhabited system now represented danger. The knowledge she carried made her valuable to too many powerful interests. In the heat of the moment, our hands connected on the console between us. The neural link formed instantly, more powerful than ever before. Raw emotions flowed between us. Her fear and confusion, my determination and protective instinct, and beneath it all something deeper neither of us had dared name. Through the connection, I showed her images of places I'd discovered in my years of smuggling. Hidden outposts, abandoned stations, Worlds forgotten by the major powers, and one place in particular, a secret I'd never shared with anyone. When the connection finally faded, we sat in silence for several moments, processing what had passed between us. There's another option, I finally said aloud. A place where neither your people nor mine could find us. Vishila's exterior had changed to a cautious amber, but with ripples of hopeful gold. You're certain it exists? This haven you showed me. I'm certain. I adjusted our course, plotting coordinates I'd memorized years ago and never used. It's time I cashed in my emergency escape plan. The streaking stars of FTL travel cast patterns across the cockpit as I studied our pursuers on the long-range scanner. 4 days had passed since our narrow escape from Meridian, and despite our best evasive maneuvers, 3 ships still dogged our trail. 2 bearing the Research Collective's registry codes, and 1 I recognized as Helix Syndicate. They were closing in from multiple vectors, coordinating their approach with military precision. They're hurting us, I muttered, fingers dancing across the navigation console, trying to force us toward the Rigel checkpoint. Vishila looked up from the engineering station, her crystalline body pulsing with troubled indigo patterns. She had spent most of our flight analyzing the structural damage from our hasty departure from Meridian. The checkpoint has quantum resonance scanners, she said. They would detect my neural signature immediately. I nodded grimly. Our options were dwindling by the hour. The modified shields had bought us time, but our pursuers were adapting their tracking methods. Each course correction we made was met with increasingly accurate predictions of our movements. We need to do something unexpected. I pulled up a sector map, focusing on a region most pilots avoided. Something desperate. Vishila moved to stand beside me, her luminous eyes studying the display. You're considering the Carina approach. I glanced at her, surprised. You know it. I know of it, she replied. The collapsed tunnel network, a navigational hazard for the past 73 years. An alert chimed from the scanner. The Helix vessel had increased speed and would intercept us in less than 2 hours. We were running out of time. I changed course abruptly, plotting coordinates that would take us directly toward the Carina Nebula. Not collapsed anymore. Vishila's exterior changed to anxious yellow, pulsing in rapid waves. That's impossible. The quantum distortions caused a catastrophic structural failure. 17 vessels were lost attempting passage. The navigational data in your archives is 3 centuries old, I countered, pushing the engines to maximum output. The tunnels were formed 20 years ago, but it's not in any official charts. She tilted her head, studying me with newfound curiosity. How do you possess this information, when it's absent from my records? Smuggler, remember, I allowed myself a grim smile. These are routes too dangerous for most pilots. High risk, high reward. I used them twice to outrun Union patrol ships. Vishila's colors shifted to cautious amber as she processed this revelation. The reconnected pathways would be highly unstable. Navigation would require split-second adjustments and intuition more than computation. I finished. That's why most ships avoid them, and why they're perfect for our situation. The tarnished edge accelerated toward the nebula, its swirling gases visible even at our distance. Our pursuers adjusted course immediately, closing the gap faster than I'd anticipated. They're pushing their engines beyond safety parameters, Vishila observed, monitoring the scanner. They know what we're planning. I input the precise coordinates that would align us with the hidden tunnel entrance. They'll try to catch us before we reach the aperture. For the next hour, tension built in the cockpit as the distance between us and our pursuers steadily decreased. The lead ship, a Research Collective cruiser, was now close enough that its forward sensors were actively scanning our vessel. The nebula filled our viewport, its gases forming massive, changing curtains of purple and gold. Somewhere within that chaotic swirl lay our salvation or our destruction. 50,000 kilometers to tunnel aperture, I announced, checking our position against memory. No navigation system recognized the entrance. I was flying on experience and instinct. Structural integrity field at maximum, Vishila reported, her voice steady despite her anxious coloration. reinforcing shield harmonics to compensate for quantum fluctuations. At 20,000 kilometers, the first energy pulse from the pursuing cruiser flashed past our starboard side, a warning shot. "They're trying to disable us, not destroy us," I said. "They still want you intact." "Comforting," Vashila replied dryly, and I caught a brief ripple of that light blue amusement I'd come to appreciate. At 5,000 kilometers, the nebula gases parted to reveal our target, a swirling vortex of distorted space-time, barely visible except for the way it bent light around its edges. If I hadn't known exactly what to look for, I would have missed it entirely. "There," I pointed, "the tunnel entrance." Vashila's yellow anxiety deepened, but she didn't object. Instead, she moved to the secondary systems panel, preparing for the turbulence ahead. "Neural connection would help stabilize our passage," she suggested cautiously. "Do it," I agreed, without hesitation. There was no time for doubts now. Her cool fingers brushed my temple and the connection formed instantly, stronger and clearer than ever before. I felt her consciousness align with mine, her analytical precision complementing my instinctive understanding of spatial relationships. Through our joined perception, I guided the tarnished edge toward the vortex. Behind us, the pursuing ships closed to firing range. "They're preparing another volley," Vashila reported through our mental link. I pushed the ship into a spiraling approach pattern, making us a harder target while maintaining our trajectory toward the tunnel. Energy pulses flashed past us, near misses that illuminated the cockpit with harsh blue light. At 1,000 kilometers, the quantum distortion began affecting our systems. Warning lights flickered across multiple panels as gravitational forces pulled at the ship's hull. "Entering distortion field," I announced, both aloud and through our connection. "Hold on." The tarnished edge shuddered violently as we crossed the threshold. The viewport filled with chaotic swirls of energy, ribbons of blue and green light dancing across a backdrop of absolute darkness. Normal space fell away behind us. Through our neural link, I sensed Vashila's momentary awe at the spectacle before she refocused on stabilizing our systems. Together, we directed the ship deeper into the tunnel, compensating for gravitational eddies that threatened to tear us off course. A quick glance at the rear scanner showed our pursuers had stopped at the tunnel entrance, unwilling to risk the unpredictable passage. "They're holding position," Vashila confirmed. "Calculating probable interception points at known tunnel exits. They'll have a long wait." I thought back through our connection. "We're not using any of the charted exits." The ship lurched suddenly as we hit a particularly strong gravitational wave. Several systems went offline temporarily before Vashila redirected power to restore them. "The tunnel configuration has changed since your last passage," she observed, concern filtering through our link. "It's constantly changing," I acknowledged. "That's what makes it secure and dangerous." For 20 tense minutes, we navigated the shifting corridor of quantum energy. The tarnished edge groaned under the strain, its hull absorbing forces it wasn't designed to withstand. Through our neural connection, Vashila helped me anticipate the tunnel's movements seconds before they occurred, just enough warning to avoid the most destructive turbulence. Then disaster struck. A massive quantum fluctuation hit us broadside, sending the ship spinning wildly. "Warning!" Klaxons blared as our primary power failed, leaving us in darkness broken only by emergency backup lights, and the soft glow emanating from Veshila's crystalline form. Our neural connection wavered but held as we fought to regain control. In the dim blue light of emergency systems, I saw Veshila's exterior had changed to alarmed red streaked with determined gold. "Main power coupling overloaded," she reported, moving to the engineering panel, attempting to reroute through secondary systems. I struggled with manual controls, trying to stabilize our tumbling vessel using minimal thrusters, the tunnels narrowing ahead. "We need power restored in 3 minutes or we'll miss the exit trajectory." Without hesitation, Veshila placed both hands directly on the engineering console. Her body brightened intensely as she formed a direct connection with the ship's systems. Bypassing damaged circuits, she communicated through our neural link, channeling emergency power to navigation and propulsion. I felt the strain this placed on her. The direct interface with damaged systems created feedback that caused her pain. Yet she maintained the connection, her determination flowing through our shared consciousness. Basic systems flickered back to life, enough for me to see the tunnel walls constricting around us. The exit point glimmered faintly ahead, a small aperture in the quantum distortion that was rapidly shrinking. We're not going to make it, I thought, calculations running through my mind. Veshila's response came with absolute certainty. Yes, we will. Through our neural link we achieved perfect synchronization. Words became unnecessary as we functioned almost as a single entity. I navigated instinctively while she managed power fluctuations, anticipating needs before I could articulate them. The ship responded to our combined will, pushing against the laws of physics. The exit aperture contracted to barely twice our vessel's width as we approached at dangerous speed. With no margin for error, I threaded the tarnished edge through the opening, scraping shield harmonics against quantum boundaries in a maneuver that should have been impossible. With a final violent shudder we burst through the tunnel exit into normal space. Emergency systems blared warnings as I cut engines to prevent further damage. We drifted, battered but intact, in an unfamiliar star system. As immediate danger passed, the intense neural connection between us began to ease naturally. But instead of breaking completely, it shifted into something different, less tactical and more personal. In the aftermath of our synchronized struggle for survival, barriers between our minds dissolved. I became aware of Veshila not just as an ally but as a being whose consciousness complemented my own in ways I hadn't imagined possible. Through her perception, I experienced the wonder of existence differently, patterns of energy and information where I had only seen physical reality. In turn, she experienced through me the visceral intensity of human emotion, not just the concept of fear or triumph, but the physical sensation of adrenaline. I've never connected this deeply with anyone, Veshila said softly, her voice breaking the silence that had fallen over the darkened cockpit. Her crystalline surface shimmered with patterns I now recognized as profound affection. The golden light that suffused her form was warm and inviting. I turned toward her, suddenly aware of how close we were sitting. Neither have I. The admission cost me nothing. Through our connection, she already knew the truth of it. Years of solitude, of keeping others at arm's length, had never prepared me for this moment of complete understanding. Our faces drew closer, guided by an attraction that transcended physical differences. Her luminous eyes held mine, questioning yet certain. Is this possible? I whispered, hesitant about our physical compatibility yet unable to resist the pull between us. I don't know, she admitted, her exterior pulsing with that same golden warmth. But I want to find out. When our lips finally met, the neural connection between us intensified beyond anything we'd experienced. The sensation wasn't just emotional or mental but manifested physically. Where her crystalline form touched my skin, a cascade of energy flowed between us, not painful but overwhelming in its intensity. I felt rather than saw what was happening. Veshila's crystalline structure briefly merged with my skin where we touched, creating a connection that transcended normal physical boundaries. Energy patterns from her consciousness transferred to me, leaving faint, luminous patterns across the back of my hand and wrist, delicate whorls that glowed with soft blue light. When we finally separated, both of us breathing heavily despite Veshila's different physiology, I didn't know that could happen, Veshila whispered, equally shocked by the physical manifestation of our connection. Her fingers hovered above the patterns, not quite touching. This is unprecedented. The markings pulsed once in synchronization with her exterior before fading slowly to barely visible traces against my skin. What does it mean? I asked, examining the faint patterns that remained. I'm not certain, she admitted. Thracians have legends of profound neural bonds, but they're considered metaphorical, not literal possibilities. Her exterior shifted through confused purples before settling into wondering gold again, especially not with another species. The ship drifted silently through the uncharted system, emergency lights creating an intimate cocoon around us. In the viewport, unfamiliar stars and a distant yellow sun provided orientation in space that felt newly meaningful. I reached for her hand, no longer fearing the connection that formed between us. Where are we? Vashila studied the stars visible through the viewport, comparing them to her extensive astronomical knowledge. According to stellar configurations, we're in a small system approximately 17 light-years from any charted territory. No known settlements or outposts. Perfect, I said with genuine relief. Temporarily safe just as we needed. She nodded, her exterior still pulsing with golden light. The tunnel exit was unpredictable, as you suggested. Our pursuers won't know where to begin searching. We should restore primary systems before we celebrate too much, I said reluctantly, not wanting to break this moment between us. Through our lingering connection, I felt her agreement tempered with the same desire to remain in this shared space of discovery. With mutual reluctance, we turned our attention to the damaged systems of the Tarnished Edge. As we worked side by side in the engine room, repairing circuits and realigning power couplings, I found myself repeatedly glancing at the barely visible patterns on my hand. Tangible proof that whatever was developing between us was real and unprecedented. The quantum distortion damaged the primary drive stabilizer again, Vashila reported after completing a diagnostic scan. We have sufficient power for maneuvering thrusters, but will need extensive repairs before attempting another FTL jump. I looked around at the unfamiliar star system visible through the viewport. At least we have time now. No one knows where we are, not even us exactly. Vashila paused in her work, her exterior changing to thoughtful blue. This unexpected detour may have saved more than our immediate situation, she said. It's given us an opportunity to reconsider our destination. My emergency haven is still our best option, I reminded her. It's secure off any official registry. I'm not questioning that, she clarified. But perhaps we should examine what we truly need beyond simple safety. I straightened from the control panel I'd been repairing, wiping grease from my hands. What do you mean? The knowledge I carry cannot remain hidden forever, she said quietly. Its purpose is to benefit civilization when the time is right. Perhaps we should consider not just how to hide, but how to protect it while ensuring it can eventually serve its intended purpose. The idea surprised me. I'd been thinking purely in terms of survival, not legacy or purpose. You're talking about the long game, she nodded. If Director Yuna is willing to go to such lengths, others will eventually do the same. We need more than a hiding place. We need a secure repository where I can transfer the most sensitive information, somewhere it can be preserved even if I am eventually captured or destroyed. The casual way she referenced her own potential destruction sent a chill through me. Through our connection she sensed my reaction immediately. I am realistic, Marcus, she said gently. My physical form has a finite existence, regardless of current circumstances. The knowledge I protect should outlive me. I moved closer to her, taking her crystalline hands in mine. The neural connection formed instantly, warm and familiar now. We'll find a way, I promised, both aloud and through our shared consciousness. But I'm not planning on anyone capturing or destroying you. Not while I'm breathing. A ripple of affection passed through her exterior. Your determination is admirable, if statistically optimistic. Statistics don't account for how stubborn I can be, I replied with a half-smile. As primary systems gradually came back online, I plotted a course through the uncharted system, looking for a planet or moon where we might find resources to complete our repairs. Long-range scanners identified a small planetoid with an atmosphere that might contain usable minerals. Setting the ship on a conservative course toward this potential resource, I finally allowed myself to rest. The neural connection with Vashila had taken more energy than I realized, leaving me mentally exhausted. In the quiet of the cabin as I drifted towards sleep, I felt Vashila's consciousness gently brush against mine, not intrusive but comforting, like a hand holding mine in the darkness. Through this tenuous connection I sensed her watching over the ship's systems while I rested, her determination to protect matching my own. The faint patterns on my hand pulsed once with gentle blue light as consciousness faded. A reminder that whatever happened next, neither of us was alone anymore. The planetoid's surface glimmered beneath us as I guided the Tarnished Edge into a stable orbit. 3 days of intensive repairs had restored our basic systems, but the ship still struggled to function properly. The drive stabilizer would need proper facilities to fix completely. Vashila stood beside me in the cockpit, her crystalline form reflecting the amber light of the system's distant sun. Through our neural connection, which now formed almost effortlessly between us, I sensed her analyzing the unfamiliar celestial body below. Minimal resources, she concluded, her exterior changing to disappointed blue. The atmosphere contains trace elements we could use for temporary patches, but nothing suitable for permanent repairs. I nodded, having reached the same conclusion. We've done what we can here. Time to make the final jump. Her colors changed to questioning amber. To your emergency haven. It's about a day's journey from here, even with our damaged drive. I input coordinates from memory into the navigation system. I've never actually used it, but it should have everything we need. Vashila tilted her head, curiosity rippling through her body. You've mentioned this place several times, yet provided minimal details. What exactly is this haven? I hesitated, caught between my secretive nature and our growing trust. Through our connection, she sensed my internal conflict and waited patiently as I gathered my thoughts. It's a decommissioned research outpost, I finally explained. Built on an uncharted moon orbiting a gas giant in a system with no valuable resources. The Union abandoned it 15 years ago when funding dried up. And you acquired it how? She asked, amusement coloring her voice. Purchased it anonymously through a series of shell corporations. I allowed myself a small smile. Cost me nearly everything I'd saved from 5 years of high-risk smuggling runs. Vashila's exterior rippled with surprise. You invested your entire savings in an emergency contingency. In my line of work, having an escape plan is worth more than any luxury. I checked our final system diagnostics before engaging the drive. Everyone has a breaking point, a moment when they need to disappear completely. I wanted to be ready when mine came. Through our connection, I felt her processing this revelation, understanding both my foresight and the deep-seated caution that had shaped my life. And now that moment has arrived, she observed quietly. Seems that way. I engaged the damaged FTL drive, which vibrated unsteadily beneath us. Hold on. This won't be the smoothest ride. The tarnished edge shuddered as we entered FTL, the damaged stabilizer causing periodic fluctuations that rattled the hull. Vashila steadied herself against my chair, her cool crystalline hand brushing my shoulder. The contact deepened our neural link, allowing me to feel her concern for the ship's structural integrity. She'll hold together, I assured her, patting the console affectionately. We've been through worse. As the stars streaked past the viewport, we settled into the rhythm of our final journey. Vashila monitored the strained systems while I focused on navigating the obscure route I'd memorized years ago. The path deliberately avoided major shipping lanes and patrol routes, adding time but providing security. Hours passed in comfortable silence, our neural connection making verbal communication largely unnecessary. When Vashila finally spoke aloud, her voice carried a weight that drew my full attention. The knowledge I carry must be preserved, she said, her exterior turning to serious indigo. Not just protected, but ensured continuity beyond my existence. I turned to face her. You're not planning on going anywhere. It's not about planning, Marcus. Her colors darkened further. It's about responsibility. The archives I contain span civilizations and millennia. If something were to happen to me, nothing's going to happen to you, I interrupted, more sharply than intended. She placed a gentle hand on mine, and through our connection flowed her patient understanding mixed with unwavering resolve. We cannot predict the future, she said softly. The research collective, the Helix Syndicate, they will not abandon their pursuit. Even your hidden outpost may eventually be discovered. I knew she was right, though I hated to admit it. The patterns on my hand, the physical manifestation of our bond pulsed faintly as I considered her words. What are you suggesting? I asked finally. A contingency of our own, she replied. A way to ensure the knowledge survives even if we do not. Before I could respond, the ship's systems began to fluctuate wildly. Warning lights flashed across the console as the damaged drive stabilizer finally gave out completely. FTL collapse, imminent, Vashila reported calmly, her hands moving across the engineering panel. preparing for emergency reversion to normal space. I gripped the controls, bracing for the violent transition. How far did we make it? She checked the navigation system. Approximately 87% of our intended journey. Close enough, I muttered, as the ship lurched sickeningly. The tarnished edge dropped out of FTL with a bone-jarring shudder. Emergency systems blared as we tumbled through normal space, the main engines offline and auxiliary power fluctuating. Through our neural connection, Vishila and I worked in perfect synchronization to stabilize the ship. Her knowledge of the systems combined with my piloting instincts allowed us to arrest the dangerous spin using minimal thruster bursts. When we finally achieved stable flight, I checked our position against the coordinates stored in my memory. We're actually not far off, I announced with relief. The system should be within visual range. Vishila adjusted the long-range scanners. After a moment she nodded. Gas giant detected at bearing 047. Single habitable moon in stable orbit. I directed our damaged vessel toward the coordinates, using maneuvering thrusters to conserve what remained of our fuel. As we approached, the massive gas giant came into view, swirling storms of deep purple and electric blue covering its surface. Beautiful, Vishila whispered, her exterior reflecting similar colors in response to the sight. In orbit around the giant was a small gray-green moon, unremarkable in appearance, but perfect for our needs. Its atmosphere was thick enough to shield from radiation, but thin enough to reveal the surface features even from our distance. There it is, I said, a strange feeling settling in my chest. Home. The word felt foreign on my tongue. I hadn't had a real home since leaving Vega Prime as a teenager. Through our connection, Vishila sensed the significance of the moment and placed her hand gently on my shoulder. As we approached the moon, I activated a specific frequency transmitter, the signal that would wake the dormant facility from its years-long sleep. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then faint lights appeared on the surface, spreading outward in all directions from a central point. The automated systems are responding, I explained with relief, powering up after all this time. Remarkable foresight, Vishila observed, genuine admiration in her voice. I guided the ship toward the illuminated area, where a landing pad had now become visible. As we descended through the thin atmosphere, more details of the facility emerged, a sprawling complex partially built into a natural rock formation, designed to be nearly invisible from orbit when powered down. The landing was rougher than I'd have liked, the damaged thrusters providing uneven deceleration. But we touched down safely on the pad, which immediately began to retract into a hangar bay built beneath the surface. As the hangar doors closed above us, sealing us safely inside, I felt Vishila's anxiety spike through our connection. Her exterior had turned to nervous green, pulsing rapidly. "What's wrong?" I asked, shutting down the ship's remaining systems. She hesitated, her colors fluctuating. "I fear what happens next." I turned to face her fully, taking her hands in mine. The neural connection deepened immediately, allowing me to sense the complex emotions behind her words. Hope mingled with dread, desire for safety conflicting with responsibility to her purpose. "This place is secure," I assured her. "The best hiding spot credits could buy." "It's not about hiding anymore," she said, her voice barely audible. "It's about what I am, what I contain. If we simply hide, the knowledge dies with me. If we're discovered, it falls into dangerous hands." I understood then the weight she carried, not just information, but the responsibility for its preservation and proper use. Through our connection, I shared a thought that had been forming since our conversation earlier. "The facility has a secure data vault," I told her, "originally designed for classified research. You could transfer portions of your archives there, share knowledge on your terms, not as a living library others can exploit." Her exterior brightened with surprise and cautious hope. "A repository independent of my physical body." I nodded. "It wouldn't be complete. I doubt any digital system could hold everything you contain, but it could preserve the most critical information." For the first time since I'd known her, Vishila's crystalline body glowed with pure, unbridled joy, a radiant white gold light that filled the cockpit. "You understand," she whispered, both aloud and through our connection. "You truly understand what matters." We disembarked from the tarnished edge into the hangar bay, which had pressurized automatically upon our arrival. The facility's air was musty but breathable, with the distinctive smell of a place long abandoned but well preserved. I led Vishila through a series of corridors, lights activating automatically as we approached. Dust covered every surface, undisturbed for years, until our arrival. The outpost originally housed 30 researchers, I explained, as we walked, studying the unique atmospheric properties of the gas giant. When funding was cut, they left everything non-essential behind. We reached the central control room, a circular chamber with workstations arranged around a holographic projector. I moved to the main console and placed my palm on the reader, which glowed briefly before granting access. "Welcome back, Administrator," an automated voice announced. "Systems at 23% capacity. Full restoration estimated in 6 hours. Begin restoration sequence," I commanded. "Priority to defensive systems, communications and the data vault." Acknowledged. Restoration sequence initiated. Vishila moved slowly around the room, examining the abandoned equipment with scientific curiosity. Her exterior had settled into a calm blue, though occasional ripples of anxious green still appeared. "This facility is far more sophisticated than I anticipated," she observed, studying a dormant research terminal. "Union research outposts don't come cheap," I replied, checking system diagnostics as they appeared on the main screen, especially ones designed for long-term isolation. As basic systems came online, I gave Vishila a tour of the facility, the living quarters, laboratories, hydroponics bay, and finally the secure data vault. Located at the lowest level of the complex, the vault was a reinforced chamber with independent power systems and multiple security protocols. This was designed to protect research findings from industrial espionage, I explained as we entered the chamber. "But it should work equally well for your archives." Vishila approached the central data core, her exterior pulsing with thoughtful blue light. She placed her crystalline hands on the interface, establishing a tentative connection. "The storage capacity is significant," she acknowledged. "Though as you suggested, insufficient for a complete transfer. You'll need to prioritize," I agreed. "The most critical knowledge first." She nodded, her focus already turning inward to the vast archives she contained. Through our connection, I caught glimpses of her mental process, cataloging, evaluating, determining which information was most vital to preserve. Our work was interrupted by an alert from the facility's newly activated perimeter sensors. I rushed back to the control room, Vishila close behind me. "Proximity alert," the automated system announced. "Vessel approaching on intercept course." The main screen displayed a ship entering the system, sleek and well-armed, bearing the unmistakable markings of the research collective. "Impossible," I muttered, checking the sensor readings. How could they have found us? Vishila's exterior had turned to alarmed red, the quantum tunnel exit. They must have detected our emergence despite the distortion. I activated the facility's defensive systems, but the readout was discouraging. "We're only at 38% power. Shields are operational, but weapons systems are still offline." "How long until they reach us?" Vishila asked, her voice steady, despite her alarmed coloration. I checked the approach vector. 20 minutes, maybe less. We stood in silence for a moment, both processing the gravity of our situation. Through our neural connection, I felt Vishila's determination solidify into resolve. "We need a strategy," she said finally. "Not just to defend but to end this pursuit permanently." I nodded, already considering our limited options. They don't know what they're walking into. They expect to find us vulnerable, possibly still aboard a damaged ship. We can use that expectation against them, Vishila suggested, her exterior turning to focused indigo. As the research collective vessel approached, we formulated our plan. Through our neural connection, ideas flowed between us with perfect clarity, each building on the other's thoughts, until we had a strategy that might work. "It's risky," I acknowledged, as we made final preparations. "All worthwhile endeavors involve risk," Vishila replied, her exterior now steady, with determination. We watched on the monitors, as the ship entered orbit, and began its descent toward our location. The facility's automated systems had been reprogrammed according to our specifications, ready to execute our plan. When the research collective vessel docked in the secondary hangar bay, we were ready. From the control room, we monitored their arrival through security feeds. 6 armed personnel disembarked, led by a thin man in a white and blue uniform, who carried himself with academic authority rather than military precision. Dr. Lane Vashila identified him through our connection. The collective's head researcher. He was present during my abduction. I felt her anxiety spike at the sight of him, along with flashes of memory, being strapped to an examination table, neural probes invading her consciousness. I squeezed her hand reassuringly, our bond strengthening with the contact. Through the facility's communication system, I addressed the intruders. "Welcome to our home, Dr. Lane. I'd say it's a pleasure, but we both know that would be a lie." The researcher's head snapped up, searching for the source of my voice. "Captain Marcus, I presume. I'm here for collective property only. Surrender the Thresian archivist, and you may yet walk away from this." "I'm afraid Vashila isn't property," I replied coolly. "And she's not interested in returning to people who strapped her down and tried to extract her memories by force." Dr. Lane signaled his security team to spread out and search the facility. "The archivist contains historical records that belong to all sentient beings. One individual should not hoard such knowledge." "Interesting perspective from someone working for an organization called the Collective," I observed. As the security team moved deeper into the facility, they encountered the first phase of our plan, sophisticated holographic decoys of both Vashila and myself, fleeing down a corridor. The team immediately gave chase, splitting their forces exactly as we'd hoped. Meanwhile, Vashila and I moved through a maintenance tunnel that connected to their docked vessel. With most of the crew pursuing our decoys, only a skeleton crew remained aboard. Through our neural connection, Vashila guided me through the ship's security protocols, knowledge she had gleaned during her time as a captive. Within minutes we had accessed their systems and locked down critical functions. By the time Dr. Lane realized the deception, it was too late. His security team was scattered throughout the facility, chasing phantoms while we controlled their only means of escape. "This is pointless, Captain." Dr. Lane's voice came through the communication system as he returned to the hangar bay. "Director Yuna has committed significant resources to this retrieval. Even if you evade us today, others will follow." "That's exactly what we need to discuss," I replied, as Vashila and I emerged from hiding to confront him directly. Dr. Lane's eyes widened at the sight of us, particularly Vashila, whose crystalline body glowed with controlled, determined blue light. 2 security officers flanked him, weapons raised. "Lower your weapons," I advised them. Your ship's systems are under our control, including life support. This conversation will go better if everyone stays calm." After a tense moment, Dr. Lane nodded to his officers who reluctantly lowered their weapons. "What is there to discuss?" he asked coldly. "The archivist must be returned to the collective." "Why?" Vashila spoke for the first time, her voice steady. "What knowledge are you so desperate to extract from me?" Dr. Lane's expression flickered with something between ambition and fear. "The war archives, the technologies that could advance our civilization by centuries. Technologies deemed too dangerous for premature implementation," Vashila corrected. "Knowledge that requires ethical evolution before technological application. Who are you to make that determination?" Dr. Lane demanded. "One individual deciding what all of humanity may access." "Not one individual," Vashila replied, calmly. "A council of archivists representing multiple species made that determination after witnessing the devastation of the Convergence War." Through our neural connection, I sensed Vashila probing deeper, her telepathic abilities reaching toward Dr. Lane's surface thoughts. What she found caused her exterior to darken with concern. "There's more," she said quietly. "Certain historical records within my archives would expose corruption within the organization meant to protect knowledge." Dr. Lane's face paled slightly. "I don't know what you mean, Director Yuna," I interjected, picking up on Vashila's discovery. "She's been selling restricted information to private interests. The Helix Syndicate, for instance." "Oh," the researcher's shocked expression confirmed our suspicions. That's not possible. You suspected it, Vashila said gently, reading his reaction, but chose not to investigate. Easier to follow orders than confront uncomfortable truths. Doctor. Lane seemed to deflate before our eyes, his academic arrogance replaced by genuine uncertainty. If what you say is true, it is, Vashila assured him, and I can prove it. But not through forced extraction of my memories. Over the next hour, a remarkable negotiation unfolded. With the security team contained and communications established with the research collective's governing council bypassing Director Yuna, Vashila presented evidence of corruption she had gathered during her captivity. The council members, shocked by the revelations, agreed to an independent investigation of Director Yuna's activities. More importantly, they acknowledged Vashila's autonomy and right to determine how her archived knowledge would be shared. The repository solution is elegant, one council member admitted, allowing controlled access to appropriate information while preserving the archivist's independence. By the time the research collective vessel departed, carrying a detained Dr. Lane and his team back to face the council's inquiry, a new understanding had been reached. Vashila would establish her repository at our outpost, sharing selected knowledge with verified researchers under strict ethical guidelines. The immediate threat had passed, though we harbored no illusions that all danger had been eliminated. The Helix Syndicate would still pose a threat, and Director Yuna might have other allies we hadn't yet identified. But for the first time since Vashila's rescue, we had breathing room space to plan our future rather than simply react to pursuit. That evening, as the facility's systems completed their restoration cycle, we stood in the observatory dome atop the highest point of the complex. Through the transparent ceiling, we watched twin moons rise over the gas giant's swirling surface, casting prismatic light across the landscape. "I've never had a home before," I admitted quietly, watching the spectacular celestial display. "Just places to hide." Vashila turned to me, her crystalline body glowing with warm golden light that had become increasingly common to see. She took my hand, the neural connection forming effortlessly now. "I love you," she said simply, the words both spoken and felt through our bond. Not despite our differences but because of them. The patterns on my hand, the physical manifestation of our unprecedented connection, brightened in response to her declaration. Through our link, I shared emotions too complex for words: gratitude for her presence in my life, amazement at the bond we'd formed, and a love that had grown from reluctant protection to profound partnership. When our lips met, the connection deepened into something transcendent, a joining of minds and bodies that defied conventional understanding. The energy patterns from her consciousness merged with mine more completely than ever before, leaving new, more intricate markings across my skin that pulsed in harmony with her crystalline body. As we stood together watching the moons traverse the alien sky, I realized that the emergency haven I'd purchased years ago had become something I never expected, not just a hiding place, but a true home, and the unexpected cargo I'd rescued on impulse had become the partner I never knew I needed.